What are the side effects of quitting drugs? This depends on the drug of choice, and included in this conversation would be alcohol. I'll start with alcohol. This can cause a life-threatening withdrawal syndrome, where a person, if they suddenly stop taking it, their body is used to having alcohol effects in their brains, and this can lead to potential seizures and other serious withdrawal syndromes. This is why alcoholics are generally treated in a detox, and where they're given medications to help prevent the onset of seizures and other tremors. In this situation, they can become delirious. That's the end stage. But at first, they can become tremulous. They become agitated, moody, tearful, and they can have rapid escalation and changes of their mood. So that would be alcohol. With other drugs, for example, on the other end of the spectrum would be, let's say, quitting cannabis or hash. There's no real physical withdrawal syndrome associated with that, but there is a psychological withdrawal syndrome. So they can become irritable, they may lose sleep, they can become agitated, but for the most part there's nothing too serious that goes along with that. And I'm sure some users would disagree with me, but on the grand scheme of things, when you compare this to the other drugs of abuse, that on the low end of the scale would be cannabis and hash. Moving on now to cocaine. When a person is quitting cocaine, they can also become irritable, agitated, emotional. This can last for about 3 days, and becomes again the psychological withdrawal, where they can have excessive cravings and moodiness, and it can take up to 3 weeks to get over that part of it. With crystal meth, it's similar to cocaine. They can feel very unwell after coming down off of a trip. These trips tend to last 3 days at a time. They're sleep deprived, and they can be extremely irritable, moody, and even borderline psychotic, where they lose touch with reality. So this can be a tough situation. Might need hospitalization in this case to get the edge off, to be given medications to help them fall asleep, and sleep is the most important thing in this situation. The good part about crystal meth is that after this period, they have a quicker recovery. The two of the worst, most long-term withdrawal syndromes are from the opioids and the benzodiazepines. So I'll start with opioids, and this, when quitting this, it can be very uncomfortable. Now in medicine we're taught that it's not life-threatening with the opioids, whereas with alcohol and the benzos that it can be life-threatening. However, I can speak from personal experience that I was incredibly uncomfortable from withdrawal, jumping out of my skin, completely petrified and fearful, and I was at the point of considering suicide. So suicidal ideation and planning is certainly a cause of mortality. And so it's important to let healthcare providers know out there that they should take this very seriously. The opioid crisis is here because people have a hard time getting off of these very strong drugs, particularly OxyContin, fentanyl, and heroin. The withdrawal syndrome with opioids can last, if a person stops suddenly, it can last a good 3 days of severe petrifying withdrawals. This is why a lot of people are unsuccessful and end up relapsing, because they're still so sick. And opioid replacement therapy or opioid agonists like methadone and Suboxone are much more likely, much more successful for somebody to not relapse and having an enduring recovery, to start them on these medications so they're not going into a nasty precipitated withdrawal. That being said, if a person does go cold turkey, like I said, with the opioids, it can be 36 hours of brutal symptoms, and then several weeks of weakness, agitation, irritability, that continues. And for me personally, I did a rapid Suboxone wean over a period of about 2 weeks, and went through pretty severe withdrawal, but it took me about 6 months to get over the weakness in my body, the profound body weakness I had, and it took me a total of 18 months to get past the psychiatric symptoms of agitation, difficulties concentrating, irritability. So it's a long road. The benzodiazepines, the final class, so this includes things like Valium, Ativan, Versed, and Xanax, and these are even longer acting than the opioids, and it's very difficult for people to withdraw off of these because it creates excessive anxiety and agitation. It's precisely the reasons why they were on it in the first place. They're treating anxiety and agitation and moodiness. That's why people generally get on these drugs, and that's why they're not being prescribed as much these days, because it's very hard to get off of them. Now, these can be life-threatening if a person goes cold turkey. It is a life-threatening emergency. They need to be weaned or tapered off of these drugs. They cannot stop cold turkey. It's the same thing with alcohol. They can go into a severe withdrawal reaction, causing delirium, tremors, and seizures. So with these drugs, they need to be slowly tapered because they're very long-acting drugs, and this needs to be done at the discretion of a healthcare professional. So to summarize, universally with almost all drugs, when a person is withdrawing from any of them, they're agitated, they're uncomfortable, they're irritable, sweats, chills, vomiting sometimes, and in the severe cases like with benzodiazepines and alcohol, they can have deliriousness, they can have muscle tremors, and they can lose consciousness, pass out, and they can go into major life-threatening seizures. So that stems the whole realm of all the types of drugs out there with potential withdrawal side effects.
If you or a loved one are looking for help with substance abuse, call our 24/7 helpline at 1-800-615-1067. A caring addiction advisor is awaiting your call.